All right, good afternoon, everyone. If you're in the States, good evening if you're in Europe, good morning if you're somewhere else. Formula One comes out today and announces that they are going to cancel all of the America's Grand Prix. So we will not have racing in Canada, the United States, Mexico, or Brazil for the entire 2020 season. With everything that's going on with this pandemic, it was probably the right decision. Everyone's safety needs to come first. But I do think there's more to that decision, and let's go over why Formula One decided not to come to the Americas and how I think Texas probably led the decision to not risk crossing the ocean, coming over here with a global pandemic coming. So let's take a look first at the numbers, and then I'll kind of explain how we got to these numbers in Texas. Specifically, although they're not great everywhere, but I do believe Texas is our main issue. So COVID-19, and I apologize for the loud board. I know there's a lot going on with this one, but there's a lot of information to go over. So COVID-19's numbers, these are going to be the dates, number of cases, and deaths. The numbers here in red represent Quebec. I took a look at just the province of Quebec and compared that to the state of Texas. And I want to just go through a quick look at the numbers as reported by the US's CDC and the equivalent in Canada. So on March 6th, which were the first cases in Texas, which is why I picked that date to start with, we had 5 cases in Texas, 3 in Quebec, no deaths reported as of yet. By April 1st, almost a month later, Canada is actually leading the way in Quebec, I should say, 4,611 cases to Texas's 3,997 cases. Canada has 33 deaths in Quebec, whereas Texas has 58. By April 15th, we're up to 14,860 cases in Quebec, 15,492 cases in Texas, 487 deaths in Quebec, 364 deaths in Texas. But the worst is definitely about to come. At this point, the numbers are kind of trending like everywhere else in the world for the most part. By May 1st, 28,648 cases confirmed in Quebec. Texas has 29,022 cases. Deaths, Canada is surging here, especially in Quebec, and they're going to lead the way here for a while. 2,022 cases or deaths, I should say, 816 in Texas at this point. And if you recall how it spread here in the U.S., if you're not from North America in general, actually, it really kind of exploded in the Northeast, where I'm from originally. New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. New York's a global city with a huge diverse population, a lot of international travel, and as you would expect, that is where these cases started blowing up. Montreal and the entire province of Quebec is much closer to that than Texas is. So I think what happened in a lot of the South, especially the deep South, like Texas, Louisiana, Florida, Georgia, a lot of these states that are having issues with it now, the cases just took longer to get there than they did. It didn't really explode. So when we get to June 1st, 51,354 cases in Quebec. They have 4,661 deaths. Texas now is caught up in cases, though. 64,880 cases to the 1,678 deaths. And underneath here, I started adding in active cases on that date. So there was 30,096 cases in Quebec to 19,000 active cases, 864 cases, I should say, in Texas. By June 15th, Canada's starting to flatten that curve. So that's a really big part of this. Social distancing, wearing masks. Canada and Quebec specifically are taking this seriously. By June 15th, their cases don't go up much. 54,054 cases, 26,599 active, so they've actually gone down in active cases at this point, whereas Texas is going the other way. 89,000 cases, or 89,108 cases, 28,063 active. Canada's still leading the way in deaths because they had been 5,292 to 1,983 in Texas, but the numbers are going to keep seesawing here. Not seesawing. Canada's going to be flattening out here. Texas is going to keep going up. By July 1st, and keep in mind, we are getting ready for Grand Prix racing at this point in Austria. So we're coming back in Formula One, and we take a look at Canada's cases, 55,524 barely raising in that 15-day time span. 25,048 active cases. Cases are still continuing to go down. In Texas, however, 168,062 cases, 78,000 plus active at that time. Deaths starting to flatten for Canada as well, 5,527, not that much of a raise, whereas Texas almost doubles again, 2,481. By July 15th, so now we've already been Grand Prix racing at this point, Canada, their curve is pretty much flattened at this point. 56,859 cases, basically 1,000 more from where they were, a little over 1,000 more, and their active cases has completely flattened to 25,126. It's not even significant movement in the dial one way or the other. Texas, though, once again, more than doubled their cases. 282,365 cases, 129,651 active cases on July 15th. And at this point, we already know the first eight races of the schedule in the F1 season. And Texas is just trending the wrong way at this point. Death-wise, Canada's still staying pretty flat here, 5,636. But Texas is up by over 1,000 cases in that same time frame. 3,432 cases. And as of yesterday, I'm filming this on the 24th, on July 23rd, 58,080 cases in Canada. A small spike, not really that significant. Curve is flattened. An asterisk here, their active cases are down to 1,913. I'll explain that in 1 second. However, Texas has once again almost had 100,000 more cases in that same time frame. 361,125 cases reported. 152,778 active cases in Texas. In addition to that, I got on my notes here, on July 22nd, they set a new high for daily fatalities at 197. So, death-wise, 5,662, barely up from where they were 15 or just a few days earlier in Canada. In that same time frame, Texas has 4,521 cases, over 1,000 more deaths in that short time period from July 15th to July 23rd. So why are Texas's numbers skyrocketing in comparison to Quebec, which are two major regions that would be hosting these Grand Prix? So I took a look at that as well. And I just wanted to look at the Texas timeline of how they've handled the COVID-19 pandemic. In March 2nd, the first cases are announced. By March 6th, they have roughly around 60 cases. March 25th, President Trump signs a executive order for federal aid to be approved to the state of Texas. On March 26th, 14-day mandatory quarantine for anyone traveling to or from the Northeast, so New York, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. 2 days after that, I didn't put up here, they actually extended that to any travel at all. March 31st, social distancing executive order is put in place by Governor Abbott in Texas. So we're almost a month into this pandemic, and they're just starting to do their social distancing now. April and May, I combined into one section. So April 11th, Governor Abbott extends disaster declaration that he had declared in early March. By April 13th, just 2 days after that, Governor Abbott announces his plans to start reopening the state. And I'm not going to get into the politics of this, other than to say there's a difference in opinion on how to approach this, with each state taking very different approaches, from what the Northeast did to what Texas did, which is kind of what I'm highlighting. And also to say that I'm just reporting the numbers as they are posted online. Whether or not you believe this is because of more testing results and more cases, I'm not getting into the politics. I'm just showing you what the numbers say. So he announces just 2 days after a reopening. By May 8th, small businesses do begin to reopen. I put an asterisk next to that because in the same day, May 8th, in Austin, the capital of Texas, the mayor of Austin mandated more social distancing and more importantly, stay-at-home orders. So he extended his stay-at-home orders the exact same day the governor is trying to reopen the rest of the state. So a lot of local officials versus statewide officials are having some arguments here. By May 18th, gyms and restaurants opened to 50% occupancy in restaurants. So we're still back in May 8th at this point, where a lot of states are just beginning to shut down. Texas, along with Georgia and Florida. But for the case of Formula One, we're only focused on Texas. Texas is starting to reopen. On June 3rd, Texas Phase 3 reopening starts. So that means we're up to 75% occupancy in restaurants. And I do want to note there is no mandate for wearing masks at this point. So by June 16th, mayors from major cities, and I do have a list of that here, which I'm going to read to you because I thought this was pretty interesting. Mayors from Austin, the capital, Arlington, Dallas, El Paso, Houston, San Antonio, and several other smaller cities are going to petition the governor to ask for a statewide mask mandate. That's on June 16th. On June 26th, 10 days later, as the numbers are spiking over here, we saw earlier, the governor begins to roll back his reopening plans and reduces occupancy down to 50% in restaurants. On July 2nd, almost a half month after the mayors reached out to him, Governor Abbott does sign a mask mandate, an executive order, mandating that anyone in public spaces in Texas is required to wear a mask or risk fine. And on July 19th, Governor Abbott, along with the United States government, announced that 5 United States Navy teams were being deployed to Texas to assist with overpopulated Texas hospitals because they're being overrun. So there you have it. Texas took a much more aggressive approach to reopening, and I get it. We're trying to reopen the economy, not going into the politics of it. But unfortunately, some of the states that did open up very early and maybe weren't impacted by the COVID pandemic as early as, say, the Northeast, and notably Quebec is in the Northeast, a little bit further north than New York, obviously. But Texas, Georgia, and Florida, to name a few states, were not really impacted by this as early as some of the other states and areas of the Americas, and they chose to reopen early. In addition to that, it took a lot for them to put in social distancing orders and to put in mask mandates. And, you know, in our country here, a lot of people still aren't wearing masks in a lot of areas. They don't want to. You can take it for what it is. I'm not a doctor. Don't pretend to be. But when we take a look at the numbers of what happened in Quebec and what happened in Texas over the same time period, we see a huge reversal and just explosion of cases, deaths, and active cases in Texas during that same time frame. And we are down here in the end of July, and cases started exploding in Texas right when we were coming back to get into racing in Formula One. So if you're the officials of Formula One trying to piece together a schedule, and you see places like Texas exploding, I mean, you really do have to put the safety of the incredible amount of logistics that goes into making Formula One work and bringing all of that over here to the States and to the Northeast, I'm not sure the Northeast, to the Americas. And you're looking at cases exploding like this, whereas a lot of the other world, we've seen a flattening in the curve. It kind of doesn't make sense to put everyone at risk like that. And if you start getting drivers, team members, crew members, and everyone else that goes into the traveling circus that is Formula One, and putting them at risk of maybe getting positive tests, you could risk altering or destroying the rest of your season with people having to sit out for maybe 14 days recovering, or worse, maybe someone, losing a battle to it. So that's where we're at. I think that's kind of why Texas led the way in this decision. Quebec, we saw a flattening of the curve. I don't actually know the numbers for Mexico or Brazil. I have heard very terrible things about things going on in Brazil. But those were the two that really interested me just in North America, in the States alone. If you're interested, I can do a video looking at Brazil and Mexico too. Let me know what you think. But what do you think about Formula One not coming to the Americas? Are you as upset about it as I am? Do you understand the decision like I do? And what races do you think might find their way on the schedule now to possibly replace these 3 and 4 events, I should say. So once again, if you're watching my videos, I really appreciate it. Please hit like and subscribe. I'm going to keep putting out videos like this, and stay safe. Thank you for watching.